Okay, today we're going to do some history. We're going to watch Fall of Constantinople, 1453, Ottoman Wars. Yes, you know what I mean? Take a little backward, going back to see what went on back in them days and thing. I'm Mr. Giant. Welcome back and ting and ting and ting. Let's go ahead and YouTube and simmer and see how the Fall of Constantinople happened.
The Ottoman Empire attempted to besiege Constantinople and end the Byzantine Empire on a half-dozen occasions, but these sieges were interrupted by the Crusades, civil wars, rebellions, and the invasion of Timur. However, by the middle of the 15th century, the Ottomans consolidated their territory and finally entered a period of internal stability. The next siege of Constantinople was imminent. In 1444, Sultan Murad II defeated the European Crusaders at the Battle of Varna. The King of Poland and Hungary, Władysław, was killed during the battle, and that plunged the most powerful states in Central Europe into a crisis. Still, the Ottomans faced resistance from the Albanian Lord Skanderbeg and the Voivoda of Transylvania, John Hunyadi. The latter sent numerous letters to the Pope and the kings of Europe, calling them to another crusade, but since no one was willing, his activity was limited to raiding into Ottoman territory. As Skanderbeg was previously an Ottoman vassal, Murad sent 3 punitive expeditions against him, but all 3 armies were ambushed and defeated by the outnumbered Albanian forces. Meanwhile, the Sultan was preoccupied with minor rebellions within the empire and a campaign against the despotate of Morea in 1440.
You know, one of the coolest things about watching history is hearing the names of places today that was, around back then. There's been so many changes in names and stuff due to conflicts and, whatever is happening there. But it's kind of, you like they say Albanian. Whoa, you know what I mean? You don't really hear about the Ottoman Empire anymore, but you hear about Albania. You hear about Serbia, Bosnia. You know what I mean? You hear about these places. I guess there hasn't been an empire per se, in a long time. At least not in my lifetime. It's just not the North American Empire or anything like that, or the Russian Empire. You don't hear nothing like that anymore. But you do hear about some of these countries that came through those tumultuous times, tumultuous. What bomb clot is that? But anyway, let's keep going through this here.
6. During the campaign in Greece, Murad forced the ruler of Morea and future Byzantine Emperor Constantine XI to become his vassal and pay tribute. It was time to attack Skanderbeg, and Murad won a minor victory at the Battle of Svetigrad in 1448. But chasing the guerrilla force under Skanderbeg was impossible, and after setting a few garrisons along the frontier, Murad returned to Edirne. Meanwhile, Hunyadi was preparing another crusade. By September of 1448, he finally raised a 30,000-strong army and started a new campaign. He was hoping that the despot of Serbia, Juraj Branković, would join him, but the latter was an Ottoman vassal and refused, so instead, Serbian lands were raided. Murad knew about all this and started moving his army to prevent Skanderbeg and Hunyadi from joining forces. Subsequent events are not clear, but it seems that in October, Hunyadi moved to the field of Kosovo to wait for Skanderbeg. Some claim that the latter was blocked by Juraj. Others think that the local Ottoman garrison slowed the Albanian force. But in any case, on the 17th of October, the Sultan and his 50,000 troops reached the site where the first battle of Kosovo between Lazar and Murad I took place. The first day of the ensuing battle, Hungarian, Polish, Wallachian and Moldovan forces attacked the Ottomans across the front with their armoured troops, but despite early successes, were pushed back. Hunyadi attempted to use his light cavalry to attack the Ottoman flanks during the night, but the Ottoman light horsemen intercepted and repelled the Crusaders. On the second day, Murad ordered his flanks to retreat, and that tricked Hunyadi. His troops attacked the Ottoman centre head-on, and were able to push the Ottoman light infantry back. However, the Janissaries stopped the Crusader advance near the Sultan's position. At this point, the Ottoman flanks returned to the battle and encircled Hunyadi's forces. The leader of the crusading army managed to retreat, but more than half of his troops were killed, while the Ottomans lost around 5,000 men. The Battle of Kosovo sealed the fate of the Balkan people for the next few centuries. Skanderbeg continued his resistance, and a few more campaigns against him did not bring any tangible success. But the focus of the Ottomans, the road to Constantinople, was now open. When Murad II passed away, and his son Mehmed II came to power in 1451, his singular goal was to take the Byzantine capital. Constantinople was not the city it once was. The total number of the population was now between 50 and 100,000, and vast swathes of land within the walls were empty and even used for farming. The Byzantine Emperor, Constantine XI, now controlled only a small territory along the coast and had to pay tribute to the Ottoman Sultan. Mehmed signed treaties with Venice, Genoa and Hungary to ensure that they were not going to attack him.
You know, they say they have to pay treaty to the Ottomans and stuff like that. Does that happen today? Or is it they go there, they occupy, and the treaties that they pay is private companies coming in and taking all the taking all the minerals and stuff. You know, that's sort of a political way of doing it. You know what I mean? They're not telling you, hey, you gonna pay me. You know what I mean? Because I have you and I have the power, so you gonna pay me. So now what they do is they take over a place, or they instill their influence on the place, and then just take all the natural resources. But it doesn't seem like if they're doing anything, because they come in the guise of giving jobs and boosting the economy and stuff like that. Truth be told, I am not a historian. Not by any stretch of the imagination. My degree is in sociology. I watch these videos so that I could learn something, you know, and I look at it from a sociological perspective. You know, how was the culture there? Is it similar to now? You know, I draw the parallels to it. You know, that's what I watch history for, more than for the history part of it itself. Though I enjoy learning about history, because I believe history tells us why things are the way. No, like somebody would explain to me in the comment section about that whole area there of Serbia and the Ukraine is like a crossroads sort of in Europe. That's why so much conflict is there. You understand what I mean? And it seems like they've always been like a crossroads, you know. It's a historical crossroads going on. You see, that's the part of it that I'm really interested in, you know. Let's keep going for this.
A new rebellion by the Karamanids allowed him to cross into Anatolia and consolidate his power in the region. Constantine XI was hoping to end the practice of paying tribute to the Sultan and threatened to support Mehmed's cousin Orhan in claiming the Ottoman throne. That gave Mehmed a reason to declare their previous treaty null and void. The Ottomans started preparing for war. In April of 1452, the Sultan gave orders to build a fortress called Rumelihizar on the northern end of the Bosphorus to prevent any ships from assisting Constantinople from the Black Sea. The fort was built by the end of August, and Constantine had no other choice but to start bringing his subjects into the city, storing up supplies, and sending pleas for help to the European states. Only a contingent of Venetian ships and around 1,000 mercenary soldiers, led by Giovanni Giustiniani, arrived to help, while most Christian monarchs ignored the pleas. The Ottomans had more than 100,000 warriors, 69 cannons, and 126 ships under the overall command of Mehmed II, against 7,000 professional Byzantine troops, among them 500 Ottomans of Prince Orhan, and a dozen or so cannons and 26 ships. More than 30,000 locals were pressed into service. The Byzantine and Italian ships were better than their counterparts, while their guns were outdated. One of the Ottoman guns was particularly big and would play an iconic role in the upcoming siege. Each section of the wall would be commanded by one of the Italian commanders, with Giustiniani being the leader, while Constantine and his guard were in reserve in the Blakane Palace. The defenders repaired the walls, and a chain was set across the Golden Horn to prevent the Ottomans from attacking the walls from the sea. The vanguard of the Ottoman army arrived at the walls of Constantinople on April 1st, 1453, and began making camp the next day. The Sultan reached the city on the 5th of April and started preparing to besiege it. The giant Ottoman cannons were in place on the 6th and started blasting the Theodosian walls, but with little effect. The cannons were so massive they needed 3 hours to reload, and the Byzantines were able to repair the damage done to the walls. On the 7th, the Sultan ordered his light infantry and skirmishers to assault the walls, but the defenders easily repelled the Ottomans. Unfortunately for them, their biggest cannons were lost in the accident, and their smaller ones were not capable of doing much damage. The Byzantines attempted a few sallies on the 8th and 9th, but no positive results were achieved. The Ottomans started battering the city walls on the 11th, and this bombardment continued until the very end of the siege. On the 17th and the 18th, the Ottomans attempted night assaults, but the defenders held on. On the water, the Ottoman fleet was unable to penetrate the chain and move into the Golden Horn. On the contrary, a few Venetian ships arrived and joined the defenders on the 20th of April. The Sultan needed to employ a new strategy. He famously ordered his ships to be moved across land near the Genoese colony of Pera. The ships were then set to water in the Golden Horn behind the chain.
Oh, wow!
Constantine sent his fire ships to quickly get rid of this threat, but the defenders lost this battle. From now on, Constantine had to keep at least part of his troops on the northern wall, and that weakened his defences elsewhere. Some of the Byzantine cannons were moved into the area, but they failed to defend the Allied ships, which had to return to the harbours. Their crews joined the defence. On May 6th, Ottoman cannons managed to destroy the gates of St. Romanus, and during the night...
That's it, man. Once they get that waterfront there, they stand to get surrounded right there. And like he said, they had to send troops there to defend that, weakening the defense on that side there. You know, I wonder if the Ottomans knew that happened. Let's see. Let's keep going.
Their forces almost breached the defences in the area, but Giustiniani arrived and fended off the attackers. On the 11th, the Caligaria gate was damaged, and the Ottomans moved in towards the Blakane Palace, but the emperor was able to push them back. The Ottoman Sultan commanded an all-out assault on the 29th. A massive bombardment was followed by a light infantry assault, but despite numerical advantage, they failed to take the walls from Giustiniani. Mehmed's artillery destroyed part of the gates near the gates of St. Romanus, and 3,000 Janissaries were sent to attack this position. The Byzantines were able to defend once again, but the Janissaries took one of the towns and planted the Ottoman flag. At this point, Giustiniani was heavily wounded and carried away from the battlements. This was a massive blow to the morale of the defenders, and when a few hundred Janissaries entered the city near the gates of St. Romanus, the Byzantine defences fell. Citizens and defenders attempted to board the ships and leave the city. Sources say that the emperor and his last guards attempted a desperate counterattack near the gates of St. Romanus, but he was killed. Thus, the last Roman emperor died alongside his empire. The fall of Constantinople was the event that marked the end of the medieval era, sparked the next phase of the Renaissance, started the ages of discovery and colonization, and also centuries of wars between the European powers and the Ottoman Empire. The wars that we are planning to cover in the future.
Yeah, once them ships breached that defense and went in there, it was all over. You know, I've read some stuff of battles back in the day, and when the battle is going on, the generals in the field could tell what the other generals, the opposing generals, could do. I wonder if they still do that. You know what I mean? Like when they went into Afghanistan or anything. Because, they probably do. We just don't know because we don't get the details. You know what I mean? Like the citizenry probably didn't get the details on there. They probably just get it in history books after the fact and all of that. But yeah, like I said, I'm not a historian, so anything that's not in there, and I know some historians watch the channel sometimes. Hook up, brother. Let me know. You know what I mean? Let me know what'll go on with that. Anyway, man, y'all take care of each other, all right? Link in the description. Cool runnings.